OP marriage. The idea arrived gently, the way dangerous things often do. What if we stopped pretending monogamy was the problem? Claire said, stirring her coffee long after it had gone cold. What if it's just pressure? Evan watched her from across the kitchen table, the morning light catching in the lines that hadn't been there when they married. 10 years together, 7 married. They had survived layoffs, miscarriages, moves, boredom. Lately, survival felt like the ceiling. You're saying you want to sleep with other people? He said. I'm saying I don't want us to die quietly, she replied. They talked for weeks before anything happened. Rules were drawn up like treaties. Honesty, protection, no mutual friends, no emotional entanglements. They used the language they'd learned in therapy, needs, boundaries, compersion, words that promised maturity. It felt progressive, brave, responsible. They told their friends carefully, framing it as growth. Most nodded politely. A few looked relieved it wasn't their marriage. The first date Claire went on was a Thursday night. Evan stayed home, cleaned the apartment, tried not to imagine her laughing the way she used to laugh with him. When she came back, glowing and nervous, she told him everything like she'd promised. He was kind, she said. It was easy. Evan smiled, kissed her cheek, told himself this was what evolution felt like. 2 weeks later, Evan slept with someone from an app. It was awkward and brief and left him feeling oddly hollow. He didn't tell Claire every detail, just enough. That was the first small fracture. What they had NT predicted was how quickly sex would become the least important part. Claire started texting more, smiling at her phone, saying things like, I didn't know if people still talked like this. Evan noticed she stopped venting to him after work. Those stories went somewhere else. Now, Evan, in turn, found himself confiding in Maya, a woman he met for drinks who asked questions Claire had NT asked in years. He told himself it was harmless. He wasn't in love. He was just being seen. The rules didn't cover this. When Claire noticed the shift, she tried to sound casual. You seem lighter lately. Yeah, Evan said. So do you. They clinked glasses, a toast to mutual avoidance. Jealousy arrived not as rage, but as grief. Evan missed the version of Claire who reached for him first when something good or terrible happened. Claire missed the way Evan used to look at her like she was the only room worth being in. Neither wanted to say it, because that would mean admitting the open marriage hadn't saved anything. It had just redistributed intimacy. The fight came on a Sunday. Claire found Evan crying in the bathroom, phony hand. Are you in love with her? She asked. He didn't answer fast enough. The silence did it for him. I don't know, he said. And that scares me. Claire sank onto the floor, back against the tub. You promised this wouldn't happen? You promised to? He shot back. And you're not exactly untouched. Sex isn't the issue, she said. You gave her you. He laughed bitterly. You gave him you months ago, just in different pieces. That was the truth they'd been circling. They had opened the marriage to avoid confronting how lonely they already were inside it. The betrayal wasn't who they slept with. It was who they stopped choosing. 4 days, they moved around each other like strangers with shared furniture. Evan ended things with Maya. Claire stopped seeing her partner too, not out of nobility, out of exhaustion. They went back to therapy. This time, there were no clever frameworks, just anger, mourning, shame. I don't know how to come back from this, Claire said once, voice small. Evan stared at the carpet. I don't know if we should. That was the sentence neither of them had allowed before. The openness hadn't broken their marriage. It had revealed its bones, thin in places they'd ignored, brittle from years of unspoken resentment. They saw clearly now how often they'd withheld tenderness as punishment, how they'd confused longevity with intimacy. One night, after a particularly brutal session, Claire said, I think I wanted permission to leave without being the bad guy. Evan nodded slowly. I think I wanted proof someone else could want me. They sat with that. In the end, they closed the marriage, not as a solution, but as an acknowledgement that openness wasn't the problem or the cure. It was a mirror. They tried, genuinely, to rebuild. Date nights, long talks, learning how to fight without keeping score. Some things returned, others didn't. 6 months later, they sat at the same kitchen table where the idea had first surfaced. I love you, Claire said, but But I don't think love is enough anymore. Evan felt the truth of it settle, solid and sad. I know they separated without drama, without villains. Friends were confused. Didn't you try everything? They asked. Yeah, and that was the point. The open marriage hadn't saved them, but it had stripped away the illusion that staying was the same as choosing each other. In the quiet afterward, both Claire and Evan grieved, not just the marriage, but the fantasy that honesty alone could heal neglect. What they learned was harder and truer. You can open a relationship wide enough to let others in, but if you've already closed your heart to the person beside you, nothing enters without becoming an exit.